good morning, everyone. And it's 10 o'clock on Tuesday, March the 18th, 2025. And it's time for our meeting of the Strathroy-Caradoc Police Services Board. And welcome to everybody here and anybody who's virtual. So number one, the chair, Matt Hall, is absent with notice. And we are still waiting for our fifth member of the board to be appointed by the province. I don't know how long we're going to have to wait, but if our MPP ever sees this, we'd sure like to have a fifth member in our PSB. If we can make that happen, that'd be fantastic. So number one.
I'll be seeing him tomorrow morning. I can ask the same question.
Exactly. And this is just a gentle jibe, but we've been waiting months, and it would be really great to have that person available. Okay, number one, roll call. I guess we've pretty much done that. Number two, the approval of the agenda. The recommendation is that the March 18th, 2025 Police Service Board meeting agenda be approved as circulated. I will look to my left. Moved by Member Hunt. I will look to my right. Seconded by the Mayor. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Number three, declaration of pecuniary interest. Are there any? And in case anybody in the audience is wondering, pecuniary interest is a financial interest. It's just making sure that we're not voting on things where we stand to make money as individuals or members of our family. Number four, reading and correction or approval of the minutes. And these are the general meeting minutes of February the 18th, 2025. The recommendation is that the minutes of February 18th, 2025 general meeting of the Strathroy-Caradoc Police Service Board be approved as written. I will look to my right. Moved by the Mayor. I have looked to my left. Seconded by Member Hunt. All those in favor? Once again, unanimous. Thank you. And that brings us to number five, presentations. Item 5.1, Warrior Health. And Mr. Matthew Pegg, Chief Operation Officer from Warrior Health, is to present to the board. Before I do that, though, I think I'll just throw it over to the Chief, who might want to comment further before we hear the presentation. Thank you.
Thanks again, Chair. So it's a great honor of mine to introduce Matt Pegg, former fire chief with the City of Toronto, and he is more recently involved in this great initiative with Warrior Health. And you're certainly going to hear lots of great things about what's happening on the mental health perspectives at the provincial level. I saw Matt's presentation at a recent OACP board meeting that was held in Halton. Prior to that, he has been very active around the province, providing this update to a lot of different emergency service boards, what's the term I'm looking for, other user groups. And for example, I've invited both the two members from the association here, the Vice President of the Association, Joel Pinkham, and Chris Jensen, our Civilian Director. Joel has seen parts of this presentation at a recent PAO conference. So I thought it was important that he Matt, have an opportunity to bring this presentation forward to the board for their awareness. But I think it's important that the board, the association, and certainly the police administration have an understanding of the initiatives that are underway at the provincial level in regards to providing supports and programming to members, family members, and retired members who are emergency service responders. This isn't just a police-specific programming. This actually has touch points across a wide field of emergency responders. So I wanted to sort of just lay that groundwork before Matt takes the floor and provides his presentation. Maybe just before we get going, if the board doesn't mind sort of just introducing who they are, their roles in the municipality, so Matt has sort of line of sight to who the in-room audience is anyways. So.
Absolutely, I'll roll back over here. Why don't we start with Inika Hunt. Inika, if you would like to introduce yourself.
Good morning and welcome also. My name is Inika Hunt. I've been on this board for, I'd say, about 5 years, just prior to COVID, and chaired the meetings during that time. And we've got other chairs. My role is I'm an appointee from the provincial government to sit on this board.
Nice, good morning.
Thank you, Inika. And to my right, Mr. Colin
Yeah,
Grantham.
Matthew, I'm Colin Grantham. I'm the mayor of Strathroy-Caradoc. Your name's certainly familiar to me. I'm aware of you, and I come from a firefighting family, both father-in-law and uncle who actually passed away from work-related cancer, and my daughter's a volunteer firefighter. So I tell these guys, I have a brother-in-law who is OPP staff sergeant, so I'm the only one who didn't follow in their footsteps. I went to the dark side, so welcome.
Thank you. My name is John Brennan. I'm a retired high school teacher, 10 years retired. That's the best kind of teacher, the retired teacher. And been on council since 2000. And before that, PUC from 97 and other boards, things locally in the early 90s. Not running again in 2026. I've been the chair, but more recently I have gone to the vice chair status, again, trying to encourage people in leadership roles in municipalities. So lived in town for over 30 years, so a great community. So yeah, I think that's everybody here. And then now Matt, he's not here, Matt Hall. So I'll say something about him as well. Matt Hall is, he works in emergency services, is that correct? And I forget what, he's now in an administrative.
Superintendent. Yeah, go ahead, you know.
The superintendent with the
Middlesex one.
Superintendent, exactly, and he's got many years of service. Matt ran for council in the last election and just finished just slightly out of the money. He was fifth and needed to be fourth to get on council. But one day I bumped into him when he was putting his signs away, and I said, well, keep your signs, run again. But let's see if we can get you involved in some local leadership. And Matt stepped up to the challenge, and he's been a member of our police services board for this entire term. He was vice chair, and now he's chair. And he's the type of person that is a pillar of the community and the type of leadership that we need, I think, in the future. So I always get the plug in there that we want to have younger people in their 30s and 40s and 50s get involved in local leadership, and Matt has taken up that challenge, and I certainly commend him for that. He's away on a big family holiday right now, otherwise he would probably enjoy being here to see your presentation. Thank you.
I just want to point out, Councilor Brennan keeps threatening not to run. I'll believe it when the day where you don't have to sign up.
I threw my signs away.
Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thanks, Your Worship, members of the board, Chief, and to your staff and your team. And really excited to see a friend of mine, Mr. Browning. I will admit I didn't expect to see Rob when I walked in the room, but Rob and I are colleagues from a long time ago. It feels like many lifetimes ago. So thank you so much for this opportunity, and I'm really excited to be here. As you know, my name is Matthew Pegg. I serve today as the Chief Operating Officer for the organization and initiative known as Warrior Health. I come to this having just recently completed a 32-year career in the fire service, the last 8 of which I served as the fire chief in the city of Toronto. And this came at me out of nowhere. I didn't actually see this coming, but as a lot of good things do, this is how this works. So thank you once again. I'm going to give you an update and an overview as to what is this thing called Warrior Health and where are we going. By way of history, it's important to understand some of the history as to how we arrived at where we are today. You will recall, and certainly my police colleagues will recall, in the years leading up to and prior to the COVID-19 pandemic, our province was seeing a very alarming trend and spike in increased numbers of first responder injuries, and specifically first responder suicide attempts. And many of those plagued the police service amongst other emergency response partners. And good on the province of Ontario. They stepped up and took a leadership role and commenced work on the creation of something that is now known as the province of Ontario's Mental Health Supports for Public Safety Personnel Strategy. They wrote that strategy. That work started prior to the pandemic, and again, my credit to the Solicitor General team. When the pandemic hit, they took that opportunity with all of course, different life to really focus on the creation of this strategy and ended up bringing it through to completion, such that in 2022 they were ready to launch the public transparent RFP process to implement that strategy. That happened in 2022. They ran a very comprehensive process that took somewhere in the vicinity of 20 months to complete, and the purpose of that RFP was to identify and select a vendor who would take their strategy and turn it into action. Wounded Warriors Canada was awarded that contract. Scott Maxwell is the Chief Executive Officer of Wounded Warriors Canada, and in responding to the RFP, he had the foresight to do something that our industry had not seen before. He pulled together a 5-party consortium and responded to the RFP on the basis of a consortium-powered initiative, and I'll explain to you how that works and what that's all about. Those partners are, of course, Wounded Warriors Canada, which is I'll talk about them, they're a national mental health provider and a national charity. He partnered, and that organization partnered with an organization known as Boots on the Ground, another charitable organization that provides some incredible work in the first responder and public safety world with respect to peer support, and then partnered with the Center for Addiction and Mental Health, CAMH, Homewood Health, and Trillium Health Partners. And that 5-party consortium is now what is known as the Warrior Health Initiative. So that contract was awarded just in the tail end of 2024, and we got underway on delivering what is a very aggressive agenda set out by the province of Ontario. The 5-party consortium I described brings together more than 300 years of experience in the delivery of frontline, boots on the ground, if you will, supports for Ontario's public safety community. It also brings together now a network of more than 1,000 mental health counselors, clinicians, treatment providers, navigators, and volunteers. So the creation of this consortium really creates a powerful enterprise. 2 things are really important to me, and certainly when I think of this wearing my hat as a former public safety professional. Number 1, the organization in the consortium is culturally competent, meaning these are organizations that are very accustomed and very regularly work in the public safety space, and they are trauma informed, meaning that all of the programming that is being included in this initiative comes from an understanding and is built and based on an understanding of the unique realities that Ontario's public safety personnel experience. Wounded Warriors, I talked about, is the actual contract holder. That's technically who I work through. National provider of mental health supports and training for trauma-exposed professionals. They are a not-for-profit corporation and a registered charity. So there are some things that are very unique about about what Warrior Health is, and things that candidly coaxed me out of an illustrious five-week retirement to come back and take this on. The first is that from its outset and from the very foundation, everything that is being built into the Warrior Health program, and the province included in the strategy, yes, it is aimed specifically at supporting Ontario's public safety personnel, but what really spoke to me is not as an afterthought, but as a foundational element, including their families and retirees. So everything that is being built supports, in this case, happy to sit with police officers today, so it doesn't just support our police officers, but it supports our police officers and their families, and those that have served and moved on to retirement. It brings together this suite of services that are, as we talked about, trauma-informed, culturally competent. What I will just draw to your attention, everything I'm going to talk about, and I'll explain this in more detail, these are not new or untested service offerings. So this is pulling together and consolidating a suite of services that are existing, they are sought after today, they are in place and being delivered today, and are proven in this space, and quite frankly of high demand. The purpose of all of this is really to help to address the gaps that we all know exist today in the accessibility of education and support and resources on the front end. So if you consider this more on the proactive and front end of the continuum of mental health and resilience, as opposed to the treatment. Warrior Health is not about post-injury treatment and care. It is about equipping Ontario's public safety personnel with enhanced resources, support, education, and really aiming to give them increased access to those supports in proactive support of their mental health and resilience. We talked about it being trauma-informed and culturally competent. I should also point out, also very important, prioritized by the province from the out of the gate in the strategy, there are intentional priorities aimed at addressing the needs of Indigenous, racialized, and minoritized public safety personnel across the province. That's built into the design of the program. We use the term public safety personnel because that's the term that the province used in the mental health supports for public safety personnel strategy. By definition, I put on the screen just some examples. There's about 80,000 trauma-exposed public safety personnel, and that includes both uniform and civilian. There is no distinction made within the application eligibility or applicability of the program. So there's about 80,000 of these folks in the province. That, of course, includes police officers, paramedics, firefighters, and fire investigators. I won't go through the whole list. You can see them. I will draw your attention to everyone working in any aspect of emergency services, call taking, dispatching, and communications functions. Those, of course, critical roles and very high stress roles. I will commend the province in the fact that they also addressed and made a point of including some of the roles that are often overlooked or not thought about, and that's things like those working in youth justice, things like folks like coroners, forensic pathologists, and forensic scientists, and all of the provincial colleagues that work in the Provincial Operations Centre, conservation officers and welfare inspectors, and like I said, both the families and the retiree community, all of those. So 80,000 does not include, and the families and retiree count is in addition to that. So I would certainly say that we're well north of 200,000 people that would be in the eligibility, all of whom are intended to be served by this. So let me just share with you what this is. So in essence, there are two lanes or two streets or two different avenues that we are building this and that this is aimed at. The first is a set of services being provided for specifically to the group we call public safety personnel. So that's the professionals that are on the boots on the ground, if you will, including their families. And then there's a secondary service offering or an additional service offering for the public safety organizations. So like the employer, like the police services, fire services, paramedic services, and all of the organizations that run. So let me explain the two of them. So first off, the service offering for public safety personnel will be powered by what is now under development as a purpose-built, what we call the core services platform. And in essence, what that is, it is a purpose-built. It is not an out-of-the-box solution. We're building it. I actually had a little look at it yesterday. It's pretty impressive. So it is this digital portal, or front door, if you will, that will include a mobile, like a web portal basis with it's www.warriorhealth.ca. So everything will be powered through a website. There will also be, concurrent with the launch, two purpose-built mobile apps. There will be an app that will operate on the iOS platform for Apple users and an app that will run on the Android platform for Android users. So all of that will be available, three different modes. Examples of what that will give. There will be access built right into the app for a fully functional, powerful, internet-based cognitive behavioral therapy, or ICBT, support service. That is something, it's known as the Sentio program. It's operated by Homewood Health, and there will be unlimited access to anyone that wishes to access ICBT. If you're familiar with any kind of mental health supports and therapy and that type of thing, CBT is very, very common now and often hard to find. So this is enhancing access to that. There are a number of really important self-assessment tools so that folks will have the opportunity to complete their self-assessment, and that will help them guide themselves into resources, training, education, and supports that best fit their own personal circumstances. A vast array of educational resources. The province, when you consider all of Ontario, the province is a big place. and there are some very unique challenges. Not everyone in our province enjoys reliable internet access or reliable LTE or 5G service. So everything that is being built by us from a portal standpoint is also available on the phone in a more analog or I would say phone-based way. So there will be a 24/7 navigational support line. So anyone who isn't comfortable accessing via an app, chooses not to, or doesn't have the bandwidth to do that, can access all of this navigational assistance on the phone. There will also be a 24/7 peer support line operated by Boots on the Ground. That will be, as I said, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, confidential, live answer, and staffed by trained public safety personnel, so staffed by colleagues. That is part of the program, the core service, available as everything is, not only to the PSPs, but also to their family. I'm really excited. Chief, when we did this presentation, we may have said this as a potential. It is now happening for sure. So we have now confirmed there will be a full integration with an incredible network of resources known as PSPNet Families. So the PSPNet Families program and portal will be directly linked and accessible, and their full service offering will be available across this network. And there are many other services we're literally working every day. Here's what matters to the people that I'm meeting with and talk about. The entire core services platform is 100% anonymous, it is confidential, and it is free. All of this, everything that is built into this portal and all of these service offerings, so everything that is available to the public safety personnel is completely funded by the province. There is no cost for any of this. You do not have to identify yourself, you don't have to log in, you don't have to pay. It is running in addition to any and all of the supports that are being provided by employers. So no cost to anyone. There will be full multi-language support. It is fully AODA compliant. And because we are purpose building it, it is being engineered so that it's flexible, adaptable, and we can continue to expand and develop it post-launch. Excuse me. A lot of questions have come up from people about the portal. So I'll just spend a minute talking about some of the answers to some of those questions. It is not an out-of-the-box solution. It is being built, purpose-built by the digital solutions team at Homewood Health. They're doing a fantastic job. It has been and continues to be engineered with anonymity at its very core. So there is nothing in the system that requires or permits any kind of identification or tracking. All of the Google Analytics are turned off. All of the tracking that normally happens across websites are locked and blocked. There are data provisions and restrictions, so none of the data that is accumulated, it cannot be sold, it will not be provided to a third party. And the use of the portal and everything that happens within the portal remains both anonymous and confidential. And that includes, there is no sharing of data between the Warrior Health portal and any of the public safety organizations. That has been a really important thing as I've met with stakeholders across the province, because the reality is not everybody is comfortable putting their hand up and saying, you know, I'd like to get some help, I'm struggling with this. They don't necessarily want to engage their employer for whatever reason. This gives them additional tools and resources that are in addition and outside of their employment and the EAP or EFAP programs that are running. The data internally for us, even within the Warrior Health team, there are tight controls on data. Data is only accessible on a legitimized need-to-know basis within the consortium, and really it is only available and will only be provided to the team of people that are doing the program evaluation. One of the components that have been built into the program is a full independent third-party professional program evaluation that is being done by data scientists, by PhDs affiliated with the University of Toronto and working through Insight Health Solutions. So that's happening as well. All of the data is encrypted, both while it is in transport, while you're using the portal or the app, and while it's being stored in all of the disaster recovery and backup locations and data servers and whatnot are all and will remain within Canada. So what will be available? That is, let me just close that off. So that is what is coming. Those are some of the exciting things that are coming in support of our public safety personnel and their families. The second stream, the second avenue, is a series or a consolidated set of basket of services, probably the best way to describe it, that become available to the public safety organizations. And I'll explain how that works. So we have pulled together all of these education, support, and training resources powered by the consortium. There are now 156 of those that have been pulled together into a single offering that we call the basket of services. Loosely identified, you can see on the screen. So they include a number of general wellness and resiliency training programs and resources. There are things aimed directly at peer support training, a significant number of leadership training and mental health informed leadership training resources, some really exciting pre-employment mental health screening and recruitment tools that organizations may choose to take advantage of, some mindfulness programming, and then some focused and targeted supports aimed at continuing to help reduce the stigmas associated with mental illness and with putting your hand up to get mental health, and really about the stigmas about putting your hand up to say, I'm going to get some help to stay healthy. And there's some really exciting anti-stigma things that are being developed. So that basket of 156 services will become available to the public safety organizations, to the employers, if you will. They are available for purchase, so it will be available on a fee-for-service basis. But because all of that has come through and has been consolidated through the completion of the public RFP, it enhances it, as I put my former hat on, it makes them much more accessible to the individual organizations because there has already been a competitive purchasing process that has happened and put them on the list. So the short version is all of these services, they all have fixed transparent pricing. There's actually 3-year pricing for them. And you can, an organization will be able to choose any or all of the services that best fit their needs. They can acquire them directly through Warrior Health by, for lack of a better term, jumping on the provincial contract, as opposed to having to self-manage all of those competitive processes that, in my experience, can be upwards of 18 months to get through. That's just, I won't go through that again. It just shows you about half of the programs fall within this general wellness category, and then there's a distribution across. So the question everyone asks and that we're all tend to wait for is who pays for all of this? And here's how this works. So I'll say again, the core services platform, everything that's being developed for our public safety personnel, their families, and retirees, fully funded by the province. It is no cost to anyone, including family members. Anyone in Ontario will have access to all of that at no cost. That is on a 3-year funding agreement. So the province executed a 3-year agreement with Wounded Warriors to develop and operate this with an option, 2 optional 1-year extensions. So there's a guaranteed commitment of 3 years with the option for up to 5. The basket of service offerings are available on fee-for-service. But another good piece of good news. So for municipal and First Nations colleagues, of course, as I sit here today, an example, later this spring, the province will open a grant application process that will be administered through Transfer Payments Ontario, through TPON, and they will open the opportunity for public safety organizations to apply to the province to receive grant funding to assist them in purchasing and procuring any of the services that are available within the Warrior Health basket of services. So we don't have exact dates. The provincial election complicated the timing of the release of some of that process, but we understand that it is coming. In my experience, my 32 years as a first responder, and of course the last 8 as the chief of a fire service, that's the first time I've ever seen the province come to the plate. We see lots of strategies, but this is the first time I've ever seen them bring a funding model with that strategy so that there are available funds for organizations to apply for. Any municipal or First Nations public safety organization who is approved for grant funding by the province, and I should make sure I'm clear, the province manages all of that. Warrior Health does not manage the grant process. That is the province on their own. Anyone who is approved for funding, really the only condition of any substance is they will have to agree to participate in the program evaluation component, which I think we can all appreciate is a vital phase to make sure that we're continuing to deliver the highest quality services. It's also accessible to all of our provincial colleagues, although there is no grant or transfer funding process available for provincial colleagues. That gets managed through their individual divisional and ministerial budgets. So the when, we're getting very close. The official language is spring. I can tell you that we're not far off the launch of all of this. So two things will happen. The province will announce they will open the application process for grant funding, and we will go live with both the core services platform, so the digital platform plus both of the mobile apps, and we'll go live with opening the basket of services, all 156 services, and the availability of them across Ontario. Just a quick update that is, I would say, the most recent. We are, I'm very proud to say, we are on time, on budget, and within scope. So the mandate and the deliverables, if you will, in the contract are really aggressive, but we are on time, we're on scope, we're there. There was, the first milestone was we probably could have come up with a better name, but it was known as the Deliverable 1 report. The Deliverable 1 report was submitted to the province on December 30th, and really that laid out all of this implementation plan. The province turned that around for us from an approval standpoint in 6 days, which was incredible. And ever since, we've been on full steam ahead on development, and like I said, our target is coming very shortly. The core service portal development is coming along nicely. We are already in the beta test environment, heading into user acceptance testing shortly, so that's great. The detailed basket of services for all 156 services are ready to go. That's all finalized. They've all been uploaded into the beta version of the portal. So all of that is sitting ready to go when the province launches the grant process. And of course, we built a comprehensive implementation process that will leverage all of that digital technology so that all of the organizations are able to use the portal to research and understand and ultimately order and procure their services that they wish to acquire through the basket of services. This is just the splash page, warriorhealth.ca. That will be the front door to the portal. So it's live now. It's static right now, but once we go live, that will be the access point to the portal. There is a functionality on here where people can sign up, submit their email address and sign up to be kept up to date. We have been really excited. I'm really excited about the number of people who have done that, who have expressed an interest and who we're now communicating with. And the last is I will just share my contact information. It's pretty straightforward. I'm Matt at warriorhealth.ca. My partner is Mike Wionzik. We hired Mike. He just a month or so ago. He's what we call the Director of Operations and Partner Support. His aim is working. He will be working directly with each of the public safety organizations as we go live and with each of our consortium partners. Mike just completed a 35-year career as a paramedic and as a Deputy Chief of Toronto Paramedic Services, as well concurrently a 35-year career that he's still serving in the Canadian Forces. So we're exceptionally honored and excited to have Mike on the team. He is Mike at warriorhealth.ca. So I thank you very much thank you for your time and the opportunity to present. I'd be happy to take any questions you may have.
Well, thank you very much for that. It sounds like an important initiative. I remember back years ago, around 2000, with Fire Chief Bill Gibson, we talked about the necessary for good mental hygiene for our firefighters, and subsequent discussions with other chiefs about our police officers and emergency workers. And it's actually very interesting to see the evolution in the attention given to this important topic over the last 30 years. It's extremely important. Before we go to questions from members of the board, to the chief, do you have any comments before I go to questions from the mayor and Inika?
Yes, if I may, Chair, thank you very much. First of all, I wanted to sort of maybe just paint a bit of a picture here for both, and I'm going to refer to him as the chief. When you spend that much time as the chief of a large organization like Toronto Fire, I think it's due respect to maintain that continuity. So I just, for this room, and it's a small audience, but both the chief and Mike Wozniak that he mentioned, I think it's important for everyone in the room to maybe realize that they were the front-facing part of the major COVID response during that time in our province, and both the work that the chief and Mike did as far as the programming and the implementation and making sure that emergency responders and community members in this province were being looked after and given the proper sort of information and protocols to help us maintain public safety during a very challenging time. I want to bring that recognition that this gentleman sitting to my right was at the pointy edge of that stick and led us through a very challenging time, and I thank you for your service during that time. A couple other comments I really wanted to bring forward is a lot of us have heard the Premier of this province talk about having the backs of emergency service workers. I think this initiative is a very clear example of his commitment to looking after emergency responders in this province, and not just the people with boots on the ground or answering calls for service, but the family members and the retired members. I think that's very important that this Premier has really put his money where his mouth is. Listening to, again, the Chief talk about the process the province has gone through, I would be remiss not to say how quickly this process has actually gone for the province. I think it's been very unique, and I'm proud to see that they have been able to sort of maneuver through all the challenges of developing and implementing a program such as this. I thought it was important, and that's why I made a reach out to our association members, that they are here along with the board and the administration to understand that this, it's really about communicating what is available for emergency responders, what opportunities, what programming, what outreach opportunities are available for emergency responders to access when it's probably a challenging time in their lives. And so I think it's important that we just present opportunities to share information, keep people informed so that they have an opportunity to access programming and access to supports when they need them, and not sort of left fending for themselves. And so that's a very important message, that we have these communication opportunities to share and understand what is available for all of our members. Again, the Chief has talked about that this programming really is very proactive, and I've had some conversations obviously with Director Payne, who obviously has oversight over the benefits that the board and the association negotiate during those collective bargaining agreements, that this opportunity is really running parallel to those other opportunities that you have through your benefit program. So it's not a one or the other, it's having two sets of sort of programming and supports available. I know the Chief talked that this is more sort of a proactive approach, but again, the understanding, the clarification that there is two different sort of opportunities for members, family members, retirees to take advantage of. When I first heard this presentation, I obviously became very interested in the basket of services opportunities. And again, I think there's an opportunity here locally for the police service and the fire service, who do a lot of work together in that space, to maybe look and take some time to research some of the basket services that may be available for both emergency response organizations, to find some parallel and some commonality in different things. And I think of, and a couple that I wrote down were the peer support type programming that I know the Deputy Chief is working with members from the Strathroy-Caradoc Fire about finding some unilateral sort of opportunities to initiate programming, but also pre-employment screening opportunities. And again, it's not just singular to the police service. I know the fire service and others would probably take advantage of that. So. And again, I think I'd be remiss if I didn't sort of draw that this presentation also fits into a lot of the strategic plan things that we talk about. And we talk about, that advancing of technology. And I think that, the Chief has outlined that, the accessibility through mobile apps makes it a very effective tool. And again, talking about the excellence in people and culture, which is again one of those 4 or 5 pillars of our strategic plan. This is really about that investment, that reinvestment in looking after the membership of not just our organization, but emergency responders locally, provincially, and perhaps even nationally. So I'll pause there, and I do want to give the association an opportunity if they have any words to bring forward.
Just that we're looking forward to any opportunity to benefit our members' mental health, and I think an emphasis on the pre-diagnosis is key, because by the time you get where there's a diagnosis, it could be too late for that officer. So I think that key programming.
So thanks for that. Thanks for that opportunity, and I'll sort of pause it if there's any questions for the chief.
Well, thank you very much, and I'll throw the floor open to any questions from members of the board. We've heard a lot of information. Many questions maybe have already been answered, but if you have another inquiry, Inika, do you have anything you would like to ask?
Yes, I do. And terrific presentation, and timely, and how quick it was developed, expedited after COVID, which, as you said, saw many situations arise. I was very pleased, Chief Campbell, to hear that you've already been in discussions with the chief of the fire department, looking at opportunities on how it could benefit the association, and looking at that basket of services, and the ones you identified I thought were very well brought forward. And especially as there's going to be grant opportunities, I feel this is something that we want to be part of the front of taking that advantage also. I had a question to Matthew, and I know you had talked about, for the frontline boots on the ground people, but you know what I have found too is it's actually sometimes really well suited, and not to underlook or underestimate the value it brings to CEOs, the chief, the deputy chief, the sergeants, in their day-to-day situations that arise and that may overwhelm. I think of that situation, and this was a physician in Toronto, and you may recall that situation where she had nowhere to turn for support for her mental health crisis, and actually, as you had mentioned about the suicide, took her life by suicide. So I think it is also very valuable to people that are on the top of the organization that don't necessarily feel comfortable to talk to their peers, since they're supposed to be the stoic, strong person, and or maybe even in their organization. So I see great value also at that level, and I just wanted to bring that as a comment. So another thing I wanted to maybe ask too was, I know that this is developed in Ontario. Pleased to see the support from the provincial government to bring this forward. I believe it, I'm not sure if I read it was also being looked at some other provinces. So maybe if you could outline that. And the other part of the question is, it is such a great program. How will you bring this forward at the Police College in Elmer?
Fantastic. Okay. Thank you so much for that. Let me try and hit those in order. So you raised some things that mean a lot to me, and I'll just give you a quick example. So one of the things you made reference to are the challenges that all of the public safety, all of the first and emergency responders face, is dealing with the realities associated with what we now understand to be stoicism, being stoic. And as a quick example, just one of the offerings in the basket of services is a training program that I have completed that I will tell you I wish I did 32 years ago, because there is incredibly informative and incredibly valuable programming that really helps emergency responders and helped me understand the realities of stoicism as a professional. And in short, helped me to understand that, of course, when an emergency is happening, it is a requirement. We need our firefighters, our police officers, our paramedics, all of our emergency communications personnel. We need everyone in the public safety community to be that calm pillar of that pillar of calm. But one of the challenges is oftentimes when the incident ends, we are not really good at then going back and making sure that we process and deal with all of that emotion. We're not allowed to deal with that when it's happening. When everyone else is emotional, we are actually expected to be increasingly calm as emotions around us increase. So that's one example of some of the training that's available, is giving us the tools to understand the impacts of stoicism on the responder and their families, and some coping strategies around that. And there's a plethora of other opportunities. There are a lot of conversations happening right now. So the scope of this work today is Ontario. The contract for its availability and the funding model is in Ontario. I can tell you there is a great interest from other provinces and territories. We're speaking very openly about it. I will say that I think, this is just my view of the world, everything that is being built, because it is living, it's been engineered as a confidential anonymous digital portal first. The potential for this to be expanded outside of Ontario and across our country absolutely exists, but there are some political decisions and some funding and administrative decisions that would need to happen there. So very much, I would say, on the go. We are building this, and one of the things that has been given to me as a priority is to make sure that everything we build and that we develop are scalable and are stable and able to expand and develop and evolve, and in essence to be iterative, so that as we continue to learn, as there continues to be program evaluation and clinical oversight, that we can respond to the ever-changing needs. And that's the principle by which we're building all of this.
If I may just add a top-up comment. So I know provincially the province, certainly on the policing platform, is a very big driver nationally regarding initiatives and whether it's member wellness, bail reform, whatever the issue, Ontario generally is in the driver's seat or in the front seat, moving a lot of those issues. So a program such as this that has such a provincial sort of flavor to it, I think that you will see once the fruits of that labor, the success is recognized. Excuse me. I think you will start to see other provinces replicating or looking to replicate this programming, and certainly at a national level. The commissioner of the OPP sits as the president of the CACP, so the Chiefs of Association of Canadian Police. A very strong advocate in the mental health space, probably a leading voice in that area for police leadership. And so I don't think it will take long for that enthusiasm, that energy to sort of spill across provincial boundaries and see this programming sort of take off in those other spaces.
I neglected to respond to one of your questions. You made reference to the chain of command and the importance of the supports from the chief all the way down. One of the things that I find really exciting and that I applaud the province for, and that we have built in, how the definition of who is eligible to access any of these things, those definitions and decisions are made by you. They're made by the employer. So there isn't a provincial decision that's been made. It really falls to each of the public safety organizations to define who within their structures meet the needs, if you will. So those that are trauma exposed and therefore can and should have access, and it is in essence fully unrestricted. So these services are very much, they are as available to the chief of police as they are to the newest recruit. And you mentioned the Ontario Police College. I am in conversation with the Police College now. I actually have we're just working on scheduling, but I believe we are going to be able to incorporate this presentation and some additional mental health and resilience programming into the OPC curriculum as well. So waiting for that opportunity.
Thank you. Comments or questions from the mayor?
Yeah, thank you. And Matthew, a phrase that every politician likes, and I commend you for it, on time and on budget. I'll enjoy that, but I think a lot has been said. I'm just going to really recommend that the town as a whole, Chief Campbell, the deputy chief, our new CAO, and Doug worked to bring this to our entire first responder. I mean, this is well needed. We give our people the best equipment. We give them body cameras. We just second set of bunker gear for our firefighters. We really need to take care of the mental health. So that's just mine. Is I greatly encourage everyone sitting back there to have a real look at this and bring this forward to people. And while I was sitting here, Matthew, I quickly looked up your bio and I noticed you started your career as a volunteer firefighter. So you know the mentality of volunteer firefighters. They're rough and tumble and farmers who jump off of their tractors and in your case drop their wrench and get out and do things, and they tend not to take care of their mental health. I mean, with our police department, but I think it's important that we take care of all of our first responders. I'm just encouraging everyone back there. Let's have a look at this and see what we can do to help our folks. So thank you for this very much, and you can fly home too. You can tell I did really check out your bio.
You did. Thank you, Worship. And what's not there is all of this started for me as a farm kid from Keswick, so I understand the jump off your tractor thing. Thank you.
Well, I think it's important that the Police Service Board and the municipality as a whole recognize their fiduciary responsibility in terms of the mental health of our first responders. It's always been a concern. I know that from talking to Bill Gibson back in 2000. It's just that now, finally, it seems we're evolving it and we're institutionalizing it, we're normalizing it, we're making it very hygienic, and removing any stigma, I think, is also incredibly important, because we don't want toxic masculinity to result in tragedies. It's tragic that we've seen that. I'd be looking for a motion to accept this presentation for information. Looking to my left, Member Hahn, to my right, the Mayor. Thank you. All in favor? Fantastic. And again, thanks for your presentation, Mr. Pegg. You're welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting. However, if you wish to depart for other business, you please take that opportunity now.
Thank you so much.
And we can now proceed with the more routine aspect of our meeting. Number 6 on the agenda, the review of monthly police service reports, which of course I'll turn over to the Chief. Items 6.1 through to 6.6 are here, so Chief, carry on.
Thanks again, Chair. Maybe for just the sake of time, again, those reports appear on your agenda list. We'll certainly take any questions from any of the board in regards to any of the information on those reports.
Yeah, great. We'll just deal with it almost as a consent agenda. Mr. Mayor, do you have any questions here?
I had one. It was on here, and I don't know if on a staff report there. The increase in domestic violence. I noticed that on a couple of reports. There was the monthly report, but just my observation, Chief, was it's increasing. To me, it seems like it's increasing, but what I didn't have to put into context is, I know like the trend month over month, or how do we fare compared to other communities? But I did note that, and I wrote it down, that it was like incidents of domestic violence were increasing.
So through the chair to the mayor, so I believe that'll be, I'm assuming you're referencing the CID monthly report, the intimate partner violence incidents?
Yeah, I'm sorry, Chief, it was on a couple I saw it too, but just overall.
So again, without looking at the month over month comparators, I will address intimate partner violence as a very concerning incident type. Certainly we've talked in previous meetings about the requirement, the training requirements that all of our staff have to go through to understand the intimacies and intricacies of investigating domestic incidents. There is a shall charge policy. That's a provincial initiative that When an officer investigating such a matter develops reasonable grounds that an offense has occurred, shall commence with a charge. There isn't a discretion piece left to the member. We certainly, through the courts and through interactions with the Crown's office, review such cases to ensure that we are proceeding with not only the required charges, but if there is other opportunities to either investigate or add additional charges. As an example, perhaps you're investigating or what you think is a common assault or a simple assault, but there may be some corresponding offenses or actions from an accused, such as criminal harassment behaviors, perhaps distributing intimate images, things like that, that we are ensuring that we are having those conversations with the Crown's office to lay the most appropriate charges, to ensure that we take a victim-centric approach, to ensure that the behaviors will come to an end as best that we can help attain that. But then working with the Crown's office to ensure that prosecutions are done properly, with the greatest chance of conviction and or some sort of sentencing order that will again benefit the victim post-charge, post-prosecution process.
And so if I may follow up, Chair, I did find that you're right, it was on the CID report, and there was 17 incidents, and that just seemed, overall like a really high number. So, and that's what I was trying to get at, Chief, maybe next meeting, like, it just seems high, right? It seems too high, one's too many, and I can't comment on whether there's underlying, but just if it'd be possible for the next meeting, just understand a trend, because if I know probably anecdotally you could talk to it, but just there seems to be a trend.
So again, through the chair to the mayor, so perhaps maybe a little bit of a deeper dive into what the numbers actually represent. I will sort of indicate that, and I think I've made this conversation at other meetings. Sorry, Mel. In that, there's a very, I'll call it a very definition of what an intimate partner incident is. So I think for most community members, they think of a domestic as an actual incident where officers are attending and there's been some sort of physical confrontation, which is the worst kind of intimate partner investigation we have. I would say a vast majority of the incidents that we attend, there is an absence of physical violence or even threats. An example being, you may have two people in a relationship who are having issues over child custody issues, and we go and we investigate the matter, understand that there isn't any sort of criminal element to the allegations or to the incident, yet it's recorded as an intimate partner event, just based on definitions both provincially and through our own local sort of call type recording. So it's sometimes, and I'm not trying to minimize intimate partner violence.
This is helpful.
Incidents, but a vast majority of them will be absence of criminal behavior and certainly absence of physical behaviors. So it's a wide swath of calls that we go to, and again, just by how they are defined, even in the absence of criminal behavior, they're recorded as an intimate partner violence incident. Another element to this too, and again, without knowing the specifics of the data, is you may have multiple events with the same family over 3 or 4 family-related matters. Again, custody issues, breakups of relationships and division of property type calls. Again, they all get defined as intimate partner violent occurrences, and so that is also an element of sometimes what accelerates numbers higher than maybe what they may be.
Yeah, thank you. That was helpful, Chair. Thanks, Chief.
Member Hahn.
I had 2 questions. One of the questions was with the CID report, and I know that there was a repeat offender. It was bullet point 2, 4 and 5, drug investigation on February 1st. A male person was charged with an ongoing drug investigation, and it says here that the male was charged accordingly. Then, not 3 weeks later, that same male is charged again. And we've heard a lot about repeat offenders, you know, similar charges. Would there be any escalation in that charge, or how is that now being dealt with? This is one person, but just in general, that the escalation of the repeat offenders.
So through the chair to Member Hahn, a little bit to unpack in your question, and I'll try my best. First, I want to outline that
For someone who's building a digital portal, they leave.
The first part of the answer I want to sort of just highlight is the interest, the dedication of our members to understand and then identify who some of our chronic offenders are, and our interest to pay lots of attention to them and to focus on their activities to effect such arrest and to lay such charges. I think certainly demonstrates our awareness and interest to thwart out this type of activity in our community. That's the first point I wanted to make on that. These 2 incidents highlight in a way some of the challenges that the current justice system and the way that it operates, and some of the certain challenges within the justice system of capacity to our justice partners' grounds to prosecute offenses in a timely fashion. Certainly the focus on an accused right to ability to be released from custody and judicial process and a timely prosecution. There's a lot of different sort of elements that go on or that are in the system currently that are creating impacts that are demonstrated in these 2 incidents where you quite commonly hear the term catch and release. So again, every time that we make an arrest, certainly a drug arrest, we are looking at every opportunity, all aspects of a case, when and where we can hold a person in custody longer, present them for a bail hearing, hopefully with a positive outcome being that they're held in custody, perhaps awaiting a future court date. But again, some of those challenges I outlined in the justice system, because of capacity at jails or to be able to prosecute cases quickly, it sort of slows down or stagnates some of the processes. And all of a sudden people are getting released and reoffending. And those are sort of ongoing challenges, and I can't sit here today and say I have a fix for you, but I can say to the board and to our community that our service is dedicated and committed to focusing on drug activity in our community and thwarting it out as best we can so that it isn't such a draw and a challenge for our community.
Thank you. Yes, and we do know about the judicial system and the backlog they have. So my second question relates to the budget, specifically the last part, and I noticed the update, and for the capital expense area, this month there was the capital update of the building annex, also the building capital provincial grant, but my first question was the transfer from reserve and I know the 500,000 that we had talked about from the reserve, then the police loans / debentures. And this is the total project cost. Is there a portion that we know will be brought forward in the calendar year? Is there a percentage? I'm not familiar with having the total cost of the project being in a calendar year. Is that normal? Or like this is a 3-year, 4-year project, I believe.
Yeah, so through the chair to Member Hahn. So if I'm understanding it without my Director of Finance friend being
Yes.
here, the $9 million placeholder is through the approval of the municipal budget process. So that amount is has been earmarked and is sitting in the police capital budget. The $500,000 was a carry forward from last year to commence work on the building annex piece. As a bit of a side note to that, we have initiated discussions with A-Link, and the Deputy Chief is going to be sitting as our project manager internally for the organization. And we are moving through that process of completing or moving towards the completion of a costing update that will come back to the board for future discussions and decisions in regards to what is the next steps after that. So I think to go back to answering your question, the $9 million sort of shows up in the capital budget line as that placeholder from the municipal council approval process.
Okay, so this year, if we were anticipating the expenses, we don't know what that portion might be yet, and maybe that's why the full amount is in there until the budget is completed and finalized.
Yeah, so again, through the chair to Member Hahn, so the process that we're undertaking with the building consultants, A-Link, is to get a clear definition of what a building annex cost looks like, and that will then come back to the board for a final approval on whether to proceed at that cost, and then once that decision is made, then it obviously then goes out to an RFP for further work.
Good. My second question on the budget was make sure I've got it right. It's the provincial grant on the NG 911, and we received, it appears like in January or February, 1.550720. It's in the year to date, and I know at the end of last year, 2024, we had received $871,000. So this 1550, is that still from prior year expenses? I don't see in the budget anything to kind of say, oh, we're anticipating a further expense. I think it's great that we've have 1.550 million that we've received in January, February. Can you just elaborate on those dollars?
So again, through the chair to Member Hahn, I'm going to qualify my answer with the municipality has taken ownership for the NG 911 project.
Okay.
So through the IT office here under the direction of the Director of Finance. So a lot of the funding opportunities was grant money made available by the province to help support agencies who run 911 centers.
Yes.
So I know that that's where the funding has come from. I do not believe that there has been any taxation applied to this project. It's all been grant funding. I would have to sort of defer to the finance department to give you distinct answers to funding questions about what has been received in the program, what has been applied to actual expenses in the program. it's a long way of saying, I just know that it's been funded through grant funding, and then the municipality is taken on the ownership of the NG 911 programming.
Okay. So possibly at a further meeting, just knowing, like, that's a huge dollar, 1.550, and it appears like that project is now done, is it not?
Again, through the chair to Member Hahn, it is not. It's an ongoing process. Some of it has to do with some vendor relationship commitments, getting the vendor in to complete some of the work.
Okay,
Okay. And then some just internal reorganizing of IT infrastructure.
okay.
But I think to answer your question, perhaps at the next meeting, I tee the Director of Finance up to come back with some answers to some of the questions that you've raised.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you.
Thank you then. We're looking for a motion to have the monthly reports 6.1 to 6.6 received for information. Moved by the Mayor, seconded by Member Hahn. All those in favor? Fantastic, it's carried. Moving on to number 7, staff reports. 7.1, the 2024 annual use of force report, POL 202505. I'm looking for a recommendation that the board receive this for information. Moved by Member Hahn, seconded by the Mayor. All those in favor? Fantastic. With that said, Chief, do you have anything you wish to address to this, or are there any questions on this?
Thank you, Chair. I did a quick count on my word count. I think I'm near the end, so I'm going to defer to the Deputy Chief for this report, and I think a couple others that he may have here.
My word count's usually pretty low, so, the use of force report, as you can see, 21 use of force reports submitted. If you look at the numbers, we did 507 arrests, over 10,000 calls for service, reportable calls for service, and only 12 of those resulted in any use of force being applied. That also includes just taking conducted any energy weapon or a taser out of a holster, so it doesn't even mean that 12 times was force actually used. So our numbers are really low. Again, we have great members who show great restraint, are able to talk to people and gain compliance that way. Any questions regarding the use of force report?
Member Hahn?
I had an observation, and it wasn't really a question, but near the bottom of the stats page, I was just trying to turn to it quickly, but it said perceived subject race / distance from subject, etc. But in those figures, as far as I can understand, it also is talking about, the 8 charges or the release of the firearms for destroying an animal. Why would they have the destruction of an animal in those type of stats, like distance from subject? Like, that would be really important if the other 13 cases, like you said, if we could understand that, those stats versus, they also, I believe they also have the stats of, of the animal figures in there, the firearms discharged for killing of animals. And same with where it says perceived subject race, like the race part. Like, it just doesn't, and there's, I think, 3 of them. I just feel that that should be excluded out of those stats.
Just to clarify, so that's on the actual use of force report for the destruction of an animal?
Sorry, no, it would be the last 3 pages of that. Oh, did I ask the wrong question? No, it's under that report. The last 3 pages.
Is there any, because I was going to ask the same questions.
Oh, okay. The last 3 pages of that use of force report.
Yes.
see where it says firearm discharged, perceived subject race, the 8, yeah, that would be relating to the animals that were, but then it goes in distance from subject.
Okay, I can answer that. So, I didn't notice this before, but the perceived subject race should actually be below.
I know, I saw that.
Yes.
But if you go now distance from subject, distance from subject.
Yes.
Oh, my computer's acting up. I can't seem to, just hang on. Distance from subject, it includes
It
the
does.
discharge.
It
And I
does.
don't think that's relevant. And the same with the next chart. It's not relevant no more about the distance from the subject.
It's not. It's unfortunately the way that the stats are collected. I mean, we could get into a debate whether they should even be reported, whether if you're destroying an animal, but unfortunately, when you discharge a firearm, regardless of what the purpose is, you have to report it, and then you have to answer all of the questions on the report as per the legislation. And again, I completely agree. It skews stats. It doesn't really apply to what the purpose of the report is.
Yeah, the last two. I thought maybe you could bring it to whoever takes charge of this, because this report is also on our website. Or maybe we add a comment there, distance from subject, or exclude, like, because it talks about, I don't know. You know what I'm trying to bring forward.
I completely understand what you're saying, and it is, and I've done this report in my previous experience as the use force officer, and yes, it doesn't always make sense what they want reported and why it's reported. I can certainly look into if we can remove those stats from it. And again, I completely agree, it skews the numbers. It doesn't necessarily make a lot of sense to have that in there when really it's a humane act that we're doing, so.
I think if I can interject as chair, I think the public wants to know whenever a firearm is discharged by our force, and we could put it under different categories, but whenever somebody's firing a bullet or discharging a force weapon, I think it needs to be reported. It's just a matter of where we put those stats in terms of the overall. But so I would want to still see it reported, but whether or not it should be included in other sets of data as a comparison becomes the issue. Yeah. Any other questions on 7.1? Mayor?
No, I just piggyback on, I wasn't gonna, are we allowed to gather race-based questions? And again, this goes back to my reading every newspaper known to man, but I do know we're gathering race-based questions, but are we allowed to gather that information?
Yes, it's actually mandatory.
Is it? Okay.
For these reports that we have to include race-based data on it. Yep.
Again, just for the mayor, provincially, and again, the use of force report underwent a kind of a rework, kind of a 2.0 improvement to it. And the collection of race-based data was obviously one of the paramount discussion points. Because in some communities, certainly outside of our community, the application of force to groups that represent diverse communities are somewhat higher. And so that's why the province is very interested in collecting the race-based data on the application of force. It is one area to collect data and sort of try to paint a picture of what interactions between policing services and members of marginalized communities look like. It's not the only way to understand how those interactions go, but it is one of the paramount sort of areas to gather that data.
Thank you. With that said, we'll move on to 7.2, the 2024 Annual CIIC Report, POL 2025-06, a recommendation that the board receive this for information, moved by the mayor, seconded by member Hahn. All those in favor? Carried. And any comments on 7.2 or questions? Turn the chair over to member Hahn. Carry on.
I had a question, and this is for the deputy chief. It says on the very last page, one incident was created on RMS as person stop. In one incident, the subject was known to the officer. Is that, like, would the officers not know more people that they stopped? I don't understand that particular emphasis. Like, I could see someone stopping me and I might know them.
So in our records management system, there's actually a person stop call type. And when we use those, that essentially indicates that it's a collection of identifying information occurrence. So what I do is I go in and I dig in to see, does this fall under the CIICC legislation, or was it actually something else? So this was an actual person stop, and because the officer knows who the subject is, so somebody that they've dealt with before, it fits the reporting requirements, but it isn't. Yeah, I can see it's confusing. So it fits the requirements of a CIIC, but because they're not asking for their personal information, it doesn't, maybe.
So the record system obviously is a catchment for us to understand how many potential incidents have we had where an officer would have to ask identifying information about a person they didn't know. So we capture those as person stop events. We didn't have any of those, save and except one. So when the deputy went to review that incident, he discovered that the officer who created the incident knew who the person was and hence didn't have to ask for identifying information under the legislation. They already knew who the person was. So by recording it as a person stop incident, it triggered the audit of the incident. Did it fall into a requirement under the Act? By looking at the incident, no, it did not. So we're just discussing the fact that we had one incident, but it didn't step into the boundary of the Act.
Okay.
And if I could just elaborate. So if the member didn't know that person and they started asking, what's your name, where do you live, then it kicks in the requirements under the Act that says you have to provide them with a card or it's basically a piece of paper with the reason for the stop, the time, date, officer's name. So because the subject was known, the person was known, the officer didn't have to do that.
Okay.
That's.
Very good. 7.3, 2025 March staffing update, POL 2025-08, a recommendation that the board receive this report for information, moved by member Hahn, seconded by the mayor. All those in favor? Carried. And now any questions on this report, this update? Member Hahn.
Would I assume that potentially Ben Landers could be related to Paul Landers? Am I allowed to ask that?
You certainly can ask that.
Okay. Because
Yes.
I think it's terrific if it was.
Yes, so Ben is the son of our former deputy chief, our retired deputy chief. He went through the process earlier this year and was successful. He started last Monday with another local fellow by the name of Aiden Burns. So they both started last Monday, and they started their OPC online portion of the training on Friday, which will be 3 weeks of online before they attend the police college in April.
Very
So,
good.
Yes.
That's terrific.
7.4, IRD training agreement with London, PSPOL 2025-09. Recommendation the board receive the board report information. Moved by the mayor, second by member Hahn. All those in favor? Any questions? Seeing none, we'll move on to number 8, other business. Police board policies and diversity plan. There's action here that the board direction is required. So maybe I'll turn that over to the chief for the moment.
I was assuming that's why the director of HR was sitting here. So,
Or the director of HR, whoever would like to field it.
He's given me the horizontal nod, so I'm guessing that he's not here to speak to that. I do believe that we have reached out to Dave Preston, and I know that the board secretary who normally occupies that seat isn't here. And I think that I think we both reached out to Dave in regards to seeing if there is an appetite for development and implementation of board policies. He is interested in that, and I think that he's really just awaiting some further direction on moving forward with that project.
Thank you for that. I think we had discussed it previously that there might be a package that they have that we can adopt. And I'm just wondering what the recommended pathway towards that decision might be, if there's a recommendation from, say, the deputy chief or the chief.
Thank you, Chair. So Dave Preston was tasked in late 2022-23 to redo all of the police services policies. At the same time, he did do all of the board policies. Now with the CSPA, they just need to be tweaked to fall in line with the CSPA. He is working with many other boards, and he is interested in providing his services. I believe he quoted $1,500 to update all of the board policies.
So would we be looking for a board motion to approve that? Is that what's being asked here?
Might I suggest that we maybe have a conversation with the board secretary, and just so that we aren't stepping over each other's activities.
Okay.
And then perhaps that there be a board report brought forward to a future meeting, bringing forth such a recommendation as to the appropriate action.
Okay, so sometime in April or May, this may come in front of us again for a decision?
I think that's appropriate.
Okay, thank you very much. That's what we'll proceed with the approval of the board members present. I just get nods and nods here. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, on to 8.2, the Mount Bridges Satellite Station. And who was going to speak to that?
Chair, I would maybe defer to the mayor. I think it was a question or an inquiry brought.
I believe you're correct. I just thought I'd go through the proper channels here to make sure that you had a chance to speak. And Mayor, you have the floor.
Yeah, no, oh, sorry, yeah, thank you, Chair. Well, it is timely because the CEO was here, and it's something we've talked about, is doing something different at Mount Bridges, but we've talked about it here, about a satellite office in Mount Bridges. We currently do have one. It's at the fire hall, and I go back to our strategic plan talking about, community policing and visibility, and you know what? It may even be in our strategic plan. I can't remember about a satellite zone. I know we've talked about it. I think it's something we need to push forward and find an option to do something. So it's kind of been out there rather nebulous, Chief. I just see if there's an action or some action we can do.
So through the chair to the mayor. So I think it's a great opportunity to further some discussions. I've sort of had some very brief conversations with the director of community services, just sort of feeling out what is the space or space limitations at, say, the library location. I think it invites some further conversations with our IT department about how do we sort of maneuver, ensure we have access to the technologies that we would need. So I think that it's, we're not very far down this road, but I think it's a path that we certainly could further explore and see just what opportunities are available to heighten that presence in the Mount Bridges community.
Okay. And it is something, as you know, just my own loving way, not gonna let go of it, something that the community's asked for, Chair, we need to move it along somehow. And I think there is an opportunity to partner with the municipality on something.
Absolutely. We had discussed the idea that possibly we set up a substation over in Mount Bridges where people can pay certain bills or things like that several times a week. And so some sort of discussion there with the CAO, I think, would probably lead us in a direction towards some kind of budgetary consideration for the following year.
Yep.
Okay, thank you very much for that. At this point, we're into announcements and inquiries by members. Member Hahn, do you have an announcement or an inquiry?
None, thank you.
Mayor, do you have an announcement or an inquiry?
No.
And neither do I. So that means we can now move on to number 10, in-camera matters. The board may move into closed session to discuss the following. One item in accordance with the municipality's procedure bylaw to approve an in-camera meeting minutes, and two items pursuant to section 44, subsection 2, subsection B of the Community Safety and Policing Act 2019 as amended regarding personal matters about an identifiable individual, including members of the police service or any other employees of the board. And the recommendation is that the board move into closed session at 11:32. I'd be looking for a mover and a seconder. Moved by the mayor, seconded by member Hahn. All those in favor, thank you very much. And we'll now move in camera, and we'll be looking for Okay, welcome back. We're back in open session, and this is to say that we did meet in camera, and as said, we met about one item in accordance with municipal procedure bylaw and 2 items in pursuit of section 44, subsection 2, subsection B of the Community Safety and Policing Act. At this point, the recommendation is that the direction of the closed session be approved. Looking for a mover, Member Hahn and the Mayor seconding. Thank you very much. All those in favor? Fantastic. And that leaves number 12, scheduled meetings. Scheduled for Tuesday, April 15th, 2025 at 10 a.m. and Tuesday, May 20th, 2025 at 10 a.m. And with that, I'll be looking for an adjournment recommendation. The March 18th, 2025 Police Services Board meeting be adjourned at 11:54. Moved by the Mayor, second by Member Hahn. All those in favor? Carried. It's unanimous. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.
There we go.
Hey, just off topic.